don't know if I need to introduce you anymore. Do I, Karen?
Absolutely, you need to introduce me.
All
I don't
right.
think
Well,
we're going to
listen,
have the same viewers, you think?
well, Karen Galley has been the co-founder and president of Patient News and Practice Zebra for over 28 years now. They're exclusively helping dentists with marketing efforts, and most recently with Practice Zebra, the last 4 years, they've created a practice analysis software program. And this is what we're going to focus on today. We have partnered together, as many of you know, with Practice Zebra and my coaching. And what we want Karen to do today is talk a little bit about the value of this program and what Zebra can bring in into 2021 for you. So we appreciate her. She's been with us multiple times in the past for some of you that have not met her or me before. So Karen, thank you.
Awesome. So Shaheen, can you guys see my full screen? Gear up for your best year yet?
Yes, and we have had some doctors that have come into the room today and asked questions. Please, if you are in the room right now and you have questions, feel free. We'll bring you into the room. So Karen, if I do have that, I'll bring them into the room for the questions, okay?
Absolutely, that sounds great. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. And I know you might pop off here for a bit, so that's fine too. But it is great to be with you, Shaheen. And as a note, we are thrilled to be working alongside you and Seven Figure to help participating dentists and office managers to improve their practice performance in 2021. So at the end of the presentation today, I will let everyone know a bit about it, but essentially all participating doctors and office managers will get personalized coaching with you, Shaheen, in connection with Zebra dental software. So super excited about that. It's all free for 30 days. So thanks for partnering with us on that. And it's a great initiative. So much appreciated.
Thank you. Same goes from my end as well.
Excellent. Awesome. So thanks everyone for joining today as well. So we're here to gear up for our best year yet. And based on some of the exciting numbers that we're looking at coming through the summer and into the fall months, it is going to be a great year for a lot of docs and offices, and I hope for you too. Today we'll talk about top trends, tools, and metrics for your success in 2021. So I hope many of you know Patient News and Zebra, but we've been in dental marketing and technology for more than 27 years. We're a technology marketing agency, and we've worked with more than 7,000 dentists on more than 50,000 distinct, both print and digital campaigns. So we really cut our teeth in print. We then expanded into digital. Print, by the way, is hugely successful and currently a bit underrated marketing tool right now. But then moving into digital services, and most recently into technology. And to date, we've installed our software on more than 1,000 dental practice management systems. So suffice it to say, we know about data. Back in 2017, we hired a ringer. Michael Esoff is our expert digital technology transformation leader, and he's a great business strategist. And he really brought modern methodologies, including artificial intelligence, mobile business intelligence, to the development of Zebra. And for those who are not familiar with Zebra, in Zebra, there's 4 key components. There's practice intelligence, or your key performance indicators. There's marketing intelligence and proper channel attribution and ROI on your marketing campaigns. There's patient communications, and there's also call tracking, scoring, and team training. So note that all the data I'm going to talk through today is actual client data that's pulled right through the practice management system. So we have about an hour, no pressure, Karen. And I do care about content and adding value. I want to make sure your time is well spent today. So 3-part agenda. We're going to quickly look at the current situation, and that includes the big dental trends 2020 in review, the current pain points that still exist. Then we're going to talk about planning for your success in 2021 and relationship dentistry being an amplified trend, then we're going to take a new concept, maybe to some of you, front-end loading, and we're going to apply that to the dental practice journey, patient journey, rather, to build success in that journey. And then we're going to wrap up with 7 key metrics that dental offices need to pay attention to right now to get and stay ahead of the curve in 2021. So a full agenda. Without further ado, let's start with those big trends, taking a step backwards. So exciting to report that US dental spending is projected to increase to $203 billion by 2027. We're in a growth industry. At the same time, the supply of full-time dentists is also expected to increase steadily. And this is coupled by some further industry consolidation, as we know, with the DSOs and groups. There's also a slight slowing in population growth, so a bit of increased competition, perhaps. The dental practice management software industry, and we've entered this realm, is expected to double by 2024 from $500 million to $1 billion. So this is everything from scheduling and patient communications to invoicing, billing, payment processing. We're going to see continued development of dental and digital technologies, including lasers, 3D printing, and dental apps. And we're moving from transactional dentistry toward relationship dentistry. And this is coupled with a greater public awareness of that mouth-body connection, which is awesome. There's increased patient financing options and flexibility, more in-house and third-party plans, dental savings plans or membership plans. And finally, there's an emphasis on cross-channel promotion, patient engagement, and those all-important reviews. So those are some big macro trends. So while dental spending is expected to increase, it's at a slightly slower rate than the healthcare sector in general. And you could see, taking a step back there, from 34 to 31%, but still an amazing, exciting, dynamic growth industry that we're very lucky to be a part of. So dental school grads are also trending upwards right through 2022. So more grads. Beyond that, there's some assumptions. It'll be interesting to see where enrollment ultimately goes as tuitions continue to increase and there are other barriers to entry. So what does that mean? With more grads, there are more dentists per capita. And this could be exacerbated even a little bit more in the short term. With those COVID pressures, there may be fewer outflows or retiring dentists. Then again, this could be offset by some premature and permanent closures through COVID as well. So generally speaking, we are part of a fantastic industry, a very also appealing and competitive one. Opportunities continue to abound as patients become more educated and we can more readily and effectively meet their needs and their wants for a healthy, functional, and beautiful smile. The good news is we are back. We survived the worst of the COVID months and closures. Many practices are going to thrive and are thriving now. You can be one of those many, and you probably are because you're here with us today. Dentistry really is resilient. So in fact, of all of the small to medium-sized business industries that have negatively been impacted by COVID, healthcare, including dentistry, is expected to make one of the strongest and fastest recoveries. And we are seeing it now, estimated here by McKinsey & Company, as soon as 2021. So this is compared to a lot of other industries, arts, entertainment, food service, accommodations, with like a really protracted recovery as late as 24, 25. So that doesn't mean there isn't going to be more downward pressure on production. For sure, there will be some more pain for some practices more than others, but you can definitely be ahead of the curve. And that starts with a mindset of positivity. And there's lots of talk about that here today. So here's a quick zebra representation of dental office production in 2020. So we were on a beautiful course, a beautiful trajectory, January through early March, and then the year literally unraveled in April. But there's more good news. We started coming on strong through the summer months, and for some practices, that has carried right through the fall. So this is exciting to share and a case in point about the resiliency of our industry. This is 13 months trailing production, so a little greater than a full year, and it's from all of the practices that are currently connected to Zebra, so hundreds of locations. We're looking at production from September end of 2019 right through October end of 2020, and I have updated data for you as well for the month of November. So the two earlier gaps in production, the first small gap correlates to the week of November 24th, which is Thanksgiving, and the second gap, December 22nd and 29th. So that's the Christmas and New Year's period. So this is very, very typical. Then we see that ugly COVID gap, which is spanning the weeks from about March 15th through to June 7th. And look at what's happened out of that COVID gap. Patient news clients were back up to 100% production through the summer months and have actually outperformed through the fall. So very exciting to report. I have noted by way of comparison, the ADA average as at the end of October, it was sitting about 78% of pre-COVID. So generally speaking, as an industry, we are recovering quite well. And this is even more exciting, and that is the September through November result. So this data was pulled November 7th. So when we isolate this time period and we compare year over year, you'll see that not only had practice production recovered, the fall session actually surpassed previous year very consistently, September and October. And why, and how is this? Why is this? There was so much doom speak. A lot of dire predictions about what was going to happen circling around fall production schedules. And I'm sure this isn't the same picture for every practice. Again, these are Zebra clients, so marketing centric, patient centric. It's all clients connected to the software, so our universe. But it does prove that it was entirely doable, and it still is doable. So you'll see that the gap, though, is now narrowing, and that was as at the week of November 7th. I do have the data through end of November and into December, and we're remaining plateaued with previous year. So, we had this positive gap of approximately 10%, through the summer months. It's narrowing a little bit, but it's holding steady through November. So pretty amazing considering that we've been in this COVID environment. Doesn't mean, again, that there aren't any pain points, because we know that there still are. What about dental spending and production in the short term? So first of all, corporate dentistry is recovering faster than independent dentistry. And there is a ton of M&A action still happening. So a lot of consolidation within the industry still. COVID, as we know, is a little bit out of control in the short term. Highest cases, hospitalizations, and unfortunately deaths. Help is on the way from Pfizer, Moderne, and these others, but we'll need to continue to mitigate the damage in that short to mid term. So according to the ADA, while 80% of patients who regularly visit the dentist have been back or tend to be back, there are still risk-averse patients in the mix. And as at the end of October anyway, access to PPE was a less reported problem than earlier in COVID, but as the cases continue to climb, we could see some additional challenges there and potentially with staffing issues as well. Of course, we've accommodated all of these new safety and sanitization protocols, a few longer appointment times, and increased pressures on capacity. And you certainly wouldn't know it from the stock markets, but we're also now dealing with continued economic uncertainty and high rates of unemployment. So the future forward impacts of that are a little unknown at this time. So there was definitely an interruption in new patient flow in the late spring through the practice closures, and that will have a forward impact. And right now in Zebra, we're noting a 5% reduction in active patients scheduled compared to this time in 2019. But that's not too bad. Geez, when you think about it, just 5% variance year over year. And again, as an agency, we may be a little bit, our clients anyway, may be a little bit ahead of the curve. But certainly we still are dealing with some of these pain points and will continue to moving forward. The key in 2021 will be to mitigate these pain points in the short to mid-term. And most of these relate directly to the patient or the patient experience. Many of the big trends that I talked about initially have really only been amplified through COVID. And in particular, I've highlighted here 3 that are within our scope and really more importantly within your control. And based on the current pain points that we just identified, we're going to zero in on one of them in particular, and that is relationship dentistry. The other 2 I've highlighted, dental membership plan promotion, as well as cross-channel marketing, and we'll touch on those a little bit later too. So we know that dentistry is a rewarding industry. We know we had a tough year, but that we are rebounding. We're still working through the COVID and other pain points, many of which relate directly to the patient experience. So a primary goal for every practice in 2021 should be to focus on enhancing that patient relationship and leveraging production through that. So we're going to move on now to part 2 of the presentation, and that is planning for success in 2021. And I just flipped this break slide in here for momentarily reminding myself that I promised to drink more water. So I have my water right here. I'm taking a big swig. And I hope you guys are doing the same, although your throats probably aren't quite as dry.
You're making me thirsty, Karen.
You should have your water in front of you there too. All right, that's the signal for part 2 of the presentation. So here we go. Planning for success at your practice. And I talked about that move away from transactional dentistry to relationship dentistry. And, you know, this was something that was initiated pre-COVID, but it's even more of a thing now. And why is that? With COVID, people really have a renewed focus, a laser focus even maybe, on their health and wellness, on their family's health and wellness. And there is that increased awareness of the mouth-body connection. And, you know, I've heard it said you can't fight COVID if you're fighting gum disease or any other illness. So people really are starting to get that, which is fantastic. We are living in an age as well of misinformation in the news, on our social channels. It's really getting harder and harder to figure out what's real. And this is leading to increased consumer skepticism all around. And as we live more and more on our smartphones and other tools and devices, there's a growing sense of personal disconnection, even though it appears that we're becoming more social as a result. There's an argument that perhaps we're becoming less. So dental patients more than ever are really in need of reassurance. And they want to have a stronger bond with their service providers and their healthcare providers. So they want to know, how are you keeping them safe? They're looking for accurate information and a better connection. So, you know, patients are not transactions, they're people, and hence the move from transaction to relationship. And what makes for a great relationship? What's the foundation of a great relationship? It really doesn't matter whether it's doctor-patient, doctor-team, husband-wife, husband-husband, friend-friend. According to psychology today, it's really all the same. There's the trust, there's honesty, communication is critical, full transparency, respect, and thankfully humor as well. And from a dentistry perspective, we can take these, we can carefully consider these elements, and we can incorporate them into our servicing model and into our marketing messaging. And our director of digital operations, who I know has spoken before for Seven Figure Dental, Grant Gooley, he just completed a marketing MBA. And in his recent presentation, he recently reminded me of good old Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So these are the fundamentals of a great relationship, but we can't even get there if the basic needs aren't first met. So the famous philosopher and psychologist Abraham Maslow argued that humans could not move up the ladder towards self-actualization unless their physiological and safety needs were first met. So in other words, patients can't move up the ladder. They're not going to accept higher value treatment, maybe not even come into the office if their basic needs aren't met, or more accurately, are perceived not to have been met. So safety, personal and financial security, and the other basics have to come first. So when we fast forward from Maslow in 1943 to current day, in a study for Harvard Business Review, a group of top marketing professionals translated Maslow's hierarchy to incorporate more modern day elements of value. And the study proved that the right combination of these value drivers in your marketing messaging results in stronger customer loyalty, higher customer conversion, and sustained growth. So you can use these value drivers to enhance that patient relationship. So the idea is to reassure, then reaffirm, and then reward. And you should be, or you'll want to be, connecting these dots. But where do you start to build a great patient experience and that stronger relationship? How do you benchmark and establish those SMART goals? So of course, it's by looking at the patient journey and at every possible touch point and opportunity that you do have to enhance it. So within this journey and at each stage, you have an opportunity to strengthen the patient relationship, to effectively promote and to boost your practice production. It starts with practice awareness. How will you be known to patients in your community? It moves through patient research. How are you found and perceived online? Moves through the buying decision and conversion. What is your first impression? And then to the patient lifetime experience, how can that be optimized? And finally, the advocacy and growth, and how can that be leveraged? And you can see that central to enhancing this journey is really great data and information. And again, the data that we're going to present today is directly through Zebra, and we'll look to Zebra to see what we're able to measure and optimize within the journey. So what will we be looking for in Zebra? The answer is actionable insights. Data is really only as good as its use. So by simply focusing on a few key performance indicators, these will drive significantly increased production and other practice benefits. So small changes in practice performance, small changes to a system or even a behavior can have a dramatic impact on practice revenue and profitability. And I'll show you how that works in a few different ways. But let's first talk about the concept of front-end loading. Front-end loading. If you haven't heard of this before, it's simply another name for pre-project planning. So some synonyms include front-end design, feasibility analysis, conceptual planning, and early project planning. Basically, it's that robust planning and design early in the project lifecycle at a time when the ability to influence changes in the design is really high and the cost to make those changes is relatively low. So front-end loading, or really effective preparation, can really help project owners to mitigate risks and commit fewer scarce resources and maximize the potential for project success. Here it is really well exemplified, and I hope you can see this. The success of many projects, including practice marketing, is most impacted by the early stages of the project management, that early identification and assessment and definition. The fact is, no matter how well a project is executed, it'll still underperform, and sometimes very badly, if enough time and care isn't taken in the planning phases. You'll end up with a C or a D grade. And I know you remember that feeling of a C or D grade. No, maybe never. You never got a C or a D, Shaheen. I don't believe it.
C minus, maybe.
C minus. Yeah. If you plan effectively, though, planning is key. Even if your execution isn't up to par, you're going to do much better, maybe a B at worst. So it's worth your time. You can see why you want to spend the time in the planning phases. And if that's not enough information and proof, then I don't know what is. So now is the time for front end loading for 2021. And as a marketing and technology company, we are able to impact the practice from both a strategic marketing standpoint and a production standpoint with critical data and analytics tools. So I thought I'd just show you quickly one of these tools. Here's an example of a marketing planning tool that we use here at Patient News. This doesn't do the work of defining your value proposition, your differentiators. It doesn't identify your target audience or your patient buying behaviors, but what it does do is help to promote your planning for cross-channel. And that just means all the different ways that you can effectively communicate. So the channels are all listed on the left-hand side, both your internal and your external channels for the practice, what the objectives are for those channels, our recommendations, and then an annual schedule of events. So if you're interested, I'm pleased to forward this along to anyone if they might find it helpful with their 2021 planning. It's a pretty cool tool. So I did just touch on cross-channel promotion, which incidentally is another of the COVID amplified trends. And why is this the case? Simply put, it's now a more complex patient journey. It requires more patient touch points to build that trust and manage those relationships. There's also now better, what we call channel attribution or ROI analysis. So tapping into the practice management software, we're able to look at phone number, address matching, and we're able to get a lot more visibility right down to the patient spend. Where did that new patient come from? How much is that new patient spending? Are they bringing friends and family members? What is the referral contribution? So it's really provided a lot more visibility. I did make mention earlier about mail. We are not getting our bills in the mail anymore, but what we are still getting is great information. Mail reaches every patient. And it reaches every household within your target area, and it's delivering significant returns. I don't want to underestimate the impact of mail. And I think I've just flipped forward a couple of slides there. So traditional offline channels used to reign supreme, and then came the digital transformation, and a lot of marketers and businesses kind of went all into one channel, and ultimately they weren't really pleased with the results, and that's where cross-channel promotion is where it's at. So back to the concept of front-end loading and the patient journey. Let's see how we can link these two things together for maximum outcome. This slide looks a little bit like an orbit, and that's how your team will want to think about the patient journey. It's really the center of the practice universe. So let's consider those 5 stages in the journey. But at each of these upcoming stages of the journey, you will want to consider and incorporate the elements of your vision, your mission, your values. These are the things that make up your brand voice. It's what's guiding the ship. Really everything that you do, from human resource relations to marketing, from case presentation to servicing, at this point, any pre-work for 2021 will be around reaffirmation of these elements, maybe even some slight tweaking or modifications. But if you haven't gone through the vision mission exercise, really consider doing it, because it's so helpful to your decision making and in guiding your team. So the patient journey. Stage 1, practice awareness. How will you be found in the community? What is your brand promise? Who is your ideal target? You may or may not know that 50% of adults are not visiting dentists regularly. So by definition, they're not searching for you. This isn't about search. It's about the massive market opportunity you're missing if you don't have an outreach program. How do you get the best from your awareness campaign? So if we're going to front end load for success in 2021, where does it start? It starts with location intelligence. Who lives in your area? Demographics, psychographics, segmentation. Who and where are the competitive practices and how are they positioning and differentiating? What is your current share of the market and what's the ratio of dentists to family members? So when you're armed with this information, this location intelligence, you can then define your target. So that's step one. Then you're going to move on to your content planning. So you should know that the female head of household makes 90% of the healthcare decisions for the family, and they want information. Back to that hierarchy of needs and wants. Remember that it starts with safety and security, then to financing options, then to emergency care, then prevention, then technology, then cosmetics, and finally to comprehensive care. These are some examples from Revive Dental, Dr. Hazel Glasper. She likes to use the term health, function, and aesthetics, but that's the final element when it comes to patient interest. So she is really successfully branded, and she really successfully communicated with her patients and with her community through COVID, achieved some amazing results, and now she's gearing up to look at her content strategy for 2021. All right, stage 2 of the patient journey, and that is patient research. Now's the time where the patient has a need and is looking for you, or has become aware and is now considering you. This is your online presence. So how do you plan for success at this stage? And how about starting with an updated online audit with your current service provider? You know, just do a bit of an audit. What's your site speed? What's your user experience, your local visibility, your listings, your reputations, the social elements, your brand image? Is your total online portfolio optimized and up to date? Is your website working? Does it well represent you and your brand promise? Are you proud of it? Are you proud of your website? You should be. It's the reflection of your practice and your practice philosophies. You know, do you need to maybe look at some new and refreshed content? Do you have some dental procedure explainer videos and some longer keywords and different elements? So what's next? Speaking of keywords, they may warrant adjustment. Has search behavior changed? It's basically time for you to do a little bit more research, and the time is now in that planning. This is just a fun fact I threw in, I wanted you to know. And Shaheen, I thought you'd be interested in this. So the week of December 1st, we launched a brand new site for Dr. Ben Winters. If you haven't heard of him, your kids may have heard of him. He's a TikTok phenom with 7 million followers, arguably the highest social profile dentist there is out there. And he loves his new site from Patient News. We're very excited. It's Windcrest Orthodontics. And Dr. Winters is really able to leverage the personal brand image and identity through his amazing notoriety and his online profile. So he's a really cool guy. I just thought you may appreciate that tidbit.
7 million is impressive.
Yeah, isn't that wild?
Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I don't know. I did TikTok. I did a couple of videos with TikTok. I think I had 10 people look at the videos.
Oh, wow. Yeah, no, he is he is beloved by his fan base. It's very exciting. And he really is a cool guy. So we're excited about that. The team's really revved up. So that's awesome. Yeah, so stage 3 of the patient journey, we're now into the all important buying and conversion. And how can you prepare for a great first impression, a better first impression than last year, perhaps? And sometimes that first impression is online, but oftentimes it is with your team at the front desk. And the obvious answer is training and the use of systems, tools, and scripts. So start by reviewing your call scoring history. Look at the reasons that patients didn't appoint and identify areas for improvement. This is an example of our call scoring guideline and some of the booklets and scripts and tools that we have available to help enhance. But training is, as you know, never a one and done. And in particular, if you're in a higher volume patient environment, you potentially have a bit greater staff turnover. So you really need a great system for call tracking, scoring, and ongoing team training. This will guarantee a stronger result for you in 2021. And if you plan for it, it will happen. So stage 4 of the patient journey, the patient lifetime experience. So how do you plan for success with your patient experience? How do you ensure higher patient satisfaction and adoption? Well, we're back to data and systems. Get ready for 2021 by benchmarking. Look at your key patient behavioral metrics. You know, Zebra creates a benchmark report at the click of a button. Patient behaviors and engagement can be measured with things like the percentage of patients scheduled, your case acceptance, and more. And once you've benchmarked, you can then set your goals. And the next step would be to look at your communication cadences. So when you're planning for a great patient experience, start with your benchmarking, then move on to your cadences. How are you staying in touch with your patients between appointments? The number one reason patients leave a practice is nothing more than perceived indifference. Just perceived indifference. So you need to, remember, you don't need to remember, you'll want to remember, to be communicating with your patient between appointments. But you do want to note the caveat there is that your communications need to be effectively branded and customized. Maybe there's some of these communications, important communications, that can be further automated, but do make sure that they're effectively branded and customized. So monthly e-newsletters are easy to execute and high value. Quarterly print newsletters, these two things in combination will reach 100% of your patient audience. If you have an in-house financing plan or third-party plan that makes sense for your office, you might want to consider a dental membership plan enhancer or booster. Email anytime options for your list or certain segments within your list. During COVID, this was critical. And of course, appointment reminders. With every interaction, even online, add value. When you ask, give. That's our golden rule at Patient News. So finally, stage 5, advocacy and growth. So I'm going to point out surveys here, which I think are also a little bit underrated tool. Even if a patient's survey isn't completed, it has a positive impact. Patients understand that you care about service and about their feedback. They have a much greater impact beyond just the information actually received. So plan to survey your patients at least once or twice a year at minimum. A review from a patient is great, but everyone knows why you want and need reviews. And you do need them, and you need recent reviews. But a survey is caring for real. And so as we call it, nothing more than a perceived indifference. Remember, that's why they leave. So your referral program, planning for a referral program, planning for surveys, planning for and automating your review process. Those are the tools you'll want to hold on to. And we're moving on to phase 3 of our talk today. So I've got my drink water slide. Number 2 and final. All right. Onward and upward. The final element of our talk today, and it is around metrics. And I've pulled a few surprising but very impactful ones for you today. So we won't go through all of these on the list. On the left-hand side, these are some metrics that you're more familiar with. Things like your number of new patients, your average patient value, high value patients. But the right column is things that are a little bit more insightful, but they're definitely actionable. So we're going to dig into these 7 metrics. Number 1, new patients versus net new patients. And you may know your new patient flow and how many new patients you're averaging monthly, but what about the number of patients you're losing or that are lapsing out of your schedule, resulting in either that net gain or loss? So we've got 2 practices here, A and B. They both on the surface look very healthy and well in terms of their new patient flow, their monthly new patient flow. So Practice A with 848 new patients, practice B with 722, but look at practice A and their lost patient base. So 1,021 lost patients, and that's resulting in an overall net loss to the practice of 173 patients. Similar new patient flow with practice B, but a lost patient value of 254 for an overall huge net gain of 468. So again, the first form of prevention is awareness. And if you're sharing these metrics regularly with your team, you're reviewing and visiting this data, it becomes part of your collective consciousness. So look to your team for support. And this is how some of our clients and prospects feel when they see this metric for the first time. But the positive side, every problem has a solution. Number 2, and I think I'm right on track with about 15 minutes to go. So number 2 of 7 is average patient value versus new patient value. So you'll want to consider this when you're quantifying your COVID production gap. If you had a considerable loss of new patient flow through COVID, this will impact your production potential in 2021 unless there's really some further mitigation. So the value of this loss can sometimes be surprising. And you'll see here the yellow arrows point to the average patient value. The red arrows are the new patient first year value. And you'll see almost across the board, it's at least double. And this is why your flow of new patients is super important. So what can you do today? Again, share the metric with your team so that they better understand the value of those new patients. And we've got clients who have done all types of things to mitigate the COVID loss, from expanding hours, dedicated appointment times, or even days for new patients, introducing more enticing referral programs, and even increase their marketing spend and incentive programs with the team too. I'm going to touch on call handling in a minute. That's a way to increase your new patient flow without spending any money on marketing. And when your team really understands the value and importance of those new patients, and they're maybe even incentivized, this is how they're going to feel. They're going to coddle those new patients. So metric number 3, maybe you can pull a list of these high value patients and you can look at your top 10% of value patients. But what are you really going to do with that information? Maybe a little bit of service differentiation, some white glove treatment, perhaps. But the key is knowing where they are. Once you know where those high value patients are, you can better target your marketing. You can look for like audiences. You can tailor your message to be relevant in attracting your ideal patient. You want more patients like your best patients. So if you know where they are, you can do a much better job at targeting. And this information is pulled, all of this information and data is pulled right out of Zebra. This is a tool, and you can literally identify and pinpoint your patients based on their value and their location in the community. So when you combine this with deep demographics of the patient, and you can really create content that's truly relevant to this audience and gets a much stronger result. So when you find those ideal patients, you have 100% chance of winning. And I hope that's your forecast for 2021. So metric number 4, you may know the production value of your membership plan patients, but what about the growth potential that still exists within that non-insured patient list? And for some dental practices, membership plan patients drive 2x, 3x, even 4x the value of non and underinsured patients. It's not the same for every practice, and you want to do that early analysis. Again, that's the planning for 2021. We have found that the simpler the plan, the higher the rate of adoption. But here's a practice, again, through Zebra. They have an average patient yearly value of $1,275. But look at the value of their dental membership plan patients. It's almost double, $2,600. So we did the math. They still had a number of uninsured patients they hadn't converted to plan. And if they were able to convert 20% more of their uninsured patients, they'd add $78,000 in production. And, dental membership, that's another amplified trend. And, pre-COVID, they were a thing. Now they're more of a thing. And why is that? Very simply, economic uncertainty, reduced employer benefits, increased unemployment rates. There's a predicted reduction in insurance reimbursements and an increasing awareness for some practices of the higher value, and cost of dental treatment is often a cited objection. So that's why it's a thing, and those are the metrics around it. So if you have a plan, it's a great idea to promote it across all your channels, and maybe using an automated communication cadence to send messages to uninsured patients at regular intervals. Definitely pre-appointments, and Zebra has this functionality for sure, along with a lot of other stuff. This chart's a little hard to read, but it's very impactful. So bear with me, I'm just gonna walk you through it. This is the call conversion what if calculator straight from Zebra. Again, and this is actual production data from the practice management system tracking. So this is a fairly large practice. They have production of approximately 2.7 million. So the chart at the top is what's happening now. And you can see that the yellow arrow points to, and I don't have my glasses on, so I'm peeking down at my screen, 55% of their calls that they're answering live. That's the yellow arrow. And the red arrow is the percentage that are converting, or 64% are actually converting. So that's the benchmark. That's where they are now. The chart below is what if they made a 10% improvement, a 10-point improvement in those metrics. They move from 55% answer rate to 65. They move from 64% conversion rate to 74% conversion rate. You can see the change by that little red arrow at the bottom. That's where we've changed those metrics. Look at the impact on this already pretty big practice. But the impact is the bottom right number. They would, by making that simple change of a 10-point improvement in call, answer, and conversion, it would add 800,000 plus in production. So that is an incredible metric, and it just shows you what the power of data and seeing the data regularly. So when your team is privy to this data, they understand the goal, and they're even incentivized. This is how they're going to feel when they convert another caller. So where are we? Number six of 7. This is the percentage of patients scheduled versus the top performing offices. So practice A and practice B analysis. Practice A has 1,200 active patients, and they have an average value of 642, so that's a little bit closer to the ADA average. Practice B has 3,669 active patients and a similar patient value, but look at the percentage of their patients who are actually scheduled. So there's only 22% scheduled for practice A. Practice B has 89% scheduled. And this is data that we pulled directly from 2 practice systems, and it just shows, the wild disparity in outcome. And, this relates back to their pre-planning. It relates back primarily to their communication plan. And patients need to know, and we touched on this, especially through COVID, starting with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. They need to know and understand that it's safe, and they need more touch points in the short term before they re-engage. So again, look to your team and look to your partners to help you identify and re-engage with all of these practices. We've noted the industry average and the top 10%. So the top 10% of practices have approximately 70% of their active patients scheduled currently. So many of our clients feel like this, and you can too when you beat that top 10%, and I know that you definitely can. Metric 7 of 7, active patients versus danger patients. What is a danger patient? A danger patient we define as a patient who has not been seen or had no transaction for 9 months, which means they're potentially at risk of leaving or attriting. So we have 2 practices here, both with healthy active patient counts of 5869 and 4927. So the difference though is in the percentage of danger patients. Practice A is close to the current industry average. They're sitting at 26% danger. The industry average is currently 27%, but practice B is really in more trouble. They're in double trouble. And that means that half of their patients aren't connected with the practice. 54% are not currently connected and have not been seen for more than 9 months. So every problem has a solution, and that is the best thing. So here's a practice that is hitting it out of the park with just 12% danger patients. So the key again is to have visibility on some of these important metrics, and you can really isolate those danger patients and speak to them individually. When you lower that danger threshold, you and your team are going to feel really good, and there'll be high fives all around. So how much added production is sitting with these metrics? And I've just identified a few of them here, and I've gone with small change, maximum impact. What if you could just improve by 10%? We're not talking about parting the seas. We're just talking about a 10% goal. New patients, active patients, scheduled, small adjustments have big impacts. So we're looking here at an increase in new patients of just 10%, maybe an increase to your dental membership plan of 10%. And this is all based on a very average size practice. So as a matter of fact, it's a practice that's doing 1.3 million in production with 2,000 active patients, and they get approximately 500 new patients a year. And this is the increase. They'd have almost an increase of 300,000 just in those first 4 metrics: new patients plan, call tracking, scoring, and reducing danger. What if they were to do something further with their case acceptance? What if they were to do something further with their active and new patients scheduled? So there's so much opportunity that lives and breathes in these metrics, and that's how we plan and organize. So we need to get and stay ahead of the curve, and a lot of practices are. We showed that there's practices right now that are hitting it out of the ballpark that have surpassed their previous year's numbers, even in this tough COVID environment. And it's not the same for all, but there are certainly things that we can do. So right now, patients do need to know what you're doing to keep them safe. And I know this has been reiterated, but also why they need to maintain a healthy mouth. They need to hear from you a lot. So focus on that communication plan, that patient journey. That I called it PX here. That just means patient experience and multi-channel communication approach. So engage your team for support. Our top production practices share their data, and they set those realistic goals for improvement. Look at these key metrics regularly and try quantifying the opportunities, looking at these what if scenarios, and prioritize the areas of the practice. Don't try and bite off more than you can chew. I think that's a zebra meme, bite off more than you can chew. I've got to keep that one in my back pocket. Remember that a small change can make a huge impact. And at the end of the day, be positive. You know, we are the lucky ones. We are in an exciting, dynamic industry with a bright future. We will get through this together, and we will be better. We can get and stay ahead of the curve with great data and good planning for 2021. We can do it. So I hope that you have your best year yet. And if anyone is interested, you know, we're certainly here, Patient News and Zebra on the marketing side to help with the planning, to help with the execution, on everything from print and digital to metrics and automated communication. So if you would like any more information, you can reach us at practicezebra.com. You can reach us at patientnews.com. And as I mentioned, we're working with Shaheen and 7 Figure. Super excited about that opportunity. It's a super low monthly cost for Zebra, all the tools, all the metrics, plus the support of you, Shaheen, with your coaching program. So I think it's $4.99 a month, and it includes all of that. So not wanting to use the floor for promotion, but I do think it's worth letting everyone know that is going to be a tremendous value for 2021 in helping with the planning and execution. So right on.
Karen, thank you so much for your presentation. I do want to add a couple of things, if you don't mind, to your presentation that I think will bring value in this partnership. Accountability is a big word. And as much as we know about metrics, as much as we know about accountability, as much as we know about actionable items that we have to go after, maybe some of you even know what your KPIs are in your place of business, but you don't hold anybody accountable. So nothing ever gets done. And I believe this is where I can come in and be very valuable to your practice in this mix of working with Practice Zebra, maximizing all of the metrics that Karen spent time talking about today, I think are going to be very important. And then, the snapshot of how your practice is improving and making sure that there are people within your practice that are doing the work. It's one thing to listen to this. It's another thing to take action. It's another thing at a higher level to be accountable for that action. And that's how your business will grow. And I think that's an important part of this. And if I may add, Karen, if you want that, you want to get connected to that program with what we're doing together, you want to go to patientnews.com/7figure dental. You're going to see a landing page that will have a form there. You can fill that out. And as Karen mentioned, it will be free for the first 30 days and you can try it out. You'll get an hour of my time. You'll obviously get onboarded. You'll be able to see the dashboard of Zebra real time with your own practice. And you'll see how well you really are doing. And I believe that ultimately all of us dentists want to practice dentistry. So having some high level help, I think, will be very beneficial. So that URL again is patientnews.com/7figure dental. And Karen, as always, I highly appreciate you, and our relationship has been amazing. You obviously have an amazing team around you that's been very supportive of what we're doing together. And we're excited about moving into 2021 and helping your practice reach all of its goals. So Karen, thank you again so much for your time today.
You're so welcome, Shaheen. Happy to be here, excited about the future opportunities, and excited to help in this wonderful industry. So
thank you, and we'll be talking soon.
Thank you for your time. Sounds
Okay.
great.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.